Hello, welcome! Today we'll be talking about oil prices. So just a quick recap. Because of the stay-at-home orders due to the coronavirus pandemic, there aren't that many people out on the road driving, and as a result, there is way more supply for oil than needed. Now, because of too much supply, oil producers actually have to store this excess oil somewhere, and what happens is that all these facilities are just filling up because there's no more places to store the oil, and as a result, the producers actually have to pay facilities money to store the oil for them, and that is why prices went into negatives this week. I mean, it's actually very intense. Some oil producers have even taken up to storing this excess oil at sea, or they're leasing these huge tankers just to be able to store the oil. How did we get here? The main thing to keep in mind is that oil supply and demand is inelastic. Remember that word inelastic? You probably learned it in your economics 101 classes, with the graphs. It's basically that. A quick recap, inelastic basically means how responsive a product is to changes in prices, meaning that when the price goes up or down, demand or supply for that product pretty much stays the same. And in this case, both oil supply and oil demand are inelastic in the short term. And we're currently being asked to stay indoors and stay at our homes. Even if the oil price had to fall down to 50 cents, you wouldn't go out and take long drives because we are meant to be staying at home. The other factor is that oil supply is also actually inelastic in the short term, meaning that regardless of what the prices are, supply can't really change that much. So it's actually pretty expensive to shut down a producing well, and as a result, for now, all producers are just going to keep on pumping oil even if it is at a loss to them. But didn't Russia, Saudi Arabia and OPEC sign a deal last week to reduce production? Yes, they did, but that's not going to help much, at least for now. So coronavirus has actually significantly reduced the global demand for oil. To give you a comparison, last year, global demand was around 100 million barrels a day. But then this year, around this time this year, the demand has decreased by 29 million barrels a day. So as you can see, it doesn't quite add up because demand has decreased by 29 million barrels a day, whereas supply has only decreased by 9.7 million barrels a day. So basically for now, there's a huge excess supply and not that many buyers. Keep in mind that a lot of oil importing countries have actually been buying so much oil because the prices are so low. So even they also don't have any facilities to store the excess oil. So in the long term, the demand for oil is actually elastic, but we're not talking about the long term. We are talking about the short term, which is today, tomorrow, next week, next month, and probably 2 months from here. As time passes, more and more oil rigs will actually stop producing as much oil as they do, and demand and supply will actually come into balance at an agreeable price, but that's not expected to happen for a while. So usually there are billions of these contracts get traded every day and there's no issue. But what happens is that if a contract is not settled upon expiration, then it actually has to be liquidated with the physical delivery of this oil. And as you can imagine, there's nowhere to store this excess oil. I mean, think about it. Where are we going to put this excess oil? On Wall Street? Down the road? No, there's literally no space. So if there's negative prices, does this mean that I'll get paid to fill up my tank? Nope, and here's why. So crude oil is actually not the best predictor of retail gasoline prices. So you have wholesale gasoline prices that actually determine what gas stations will pay for gasoline. So wholesale gasoline prices are just one factor. Other factors to take into consideration are refining costs, transportation costs, marketing costs, taxes, local taxes, state taxes, as well as federal taxes, and a bunch of all other costs that actually factor into the final price that you pay at the gas station. So no, this does not mean that you'll be paid to fill up your tank. But everything will go back to normal in June, right? Not necessarily. Do you think that the coronavirus pandemic will be under control in June and everyone will be back on roads like it's normal? I guess we'll have to wait and see. So basically, as coronavirus continues spreading and more people continue losing their jobs, the US is producing way more oil than needed, and there isn't enough facilities to store all this excess oil. That's why prices are the way that they are now. And that, my friends, is the tea of the day. Cheers! Please don't forget to subscribe.